You are pursued. It was an honest mistake, but no matter the intention, princes don't take well to being made a fool. Really, it was his own fault for challenging such a renowned wit as yourself to a game of riddles. But perhaps you had let your tongue become a bit sharper than was prudent. Now the palace hounds pursue you through the woods at night. Moonlight is filtered through the skeletal branches of the naked trees and reflects off the snow that covers the ground. You are no athlete, and so perhaps to run is a futile exercise. Yet still you go on, just as the barks behind you draw closer, and you expect to feel the jaws clamping around your ankles. You duck under the trunk of a fallen tree, and when you pop up on the other side, the barking behind you ceases. You turn around and see that all sounds and sights of your pursuers have vanished. Is this even the same forest through which you once ran? The moonlight has a shimmering, bluish quality, and then it strikes you. You have accidentally slipped into the plane of winter. Not the season, it was that where you left, but to the plane of existence that bears the same name as that season. It is a realm of the unseelie Fae. Tonight we're talking about the Feywild, the realm of Fae. Faerie, if you prefer. A place which holds both unimaginable wonders and nightmarish horrors. Welcome to Tabletop Sandbox, where we talk about all things TTRPG. Despite how it may appear, I am a lover, not a fighter. Also known as Harrison Tarr. The 5e Dungeon Master's Guide has an entry on the Feywild, and despite it being longer than some of the other entries on the many planes, it really doesn't have enough information to let you run an adventure there easily. Mostly, the information is about the Feywild's relation to other planes, and how you would cross from one plane into the Feywild. But if you wanted to run anything longer than a one-shot or a side quest in the Feywild, you're going to need to do some world building on your own. In this video, I'm going to provide you with some ideas and inspiration for when it comes time for you to run the Feywild for your group. Now, first I'm going to give you the example of my Feywild. It's not actually a single plane overlaid on top of the material plane, known as the Feywild or the Fey Realm, but it is split into 4 separate but conjoined planes that are the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. The Seelie Fae have domain over spring and summer, and the Unseelie domain over autumn and winter. I took a page from Shakespeare, and summer is ruled by King Oberon and Queen Titania. Autumn is ruled by Maeve, and winter by Queen Mab. I also stole a bit from Slavic folklore, and spring is ruled by Veles. These rulers of each of these 4 planes are Archfey, but then you can also include other Archfey as major NPCs in the Fey realm. Think of characters that you might like to see that fit the archetype of fairy. One that springs to my mind is Saint Nicholas. Develop the key NPCs, the characters. Also decide which creatures reside in your Feywild. This doesn't have to stick to what your source content says. If you want unicorns to reside in the forests of the prime material plane rather than the Feywild, that is your choice to make. Typically, trolls, hags, boggarts, these are considered unseelie Fae. Things like pixies, satyrs, these are considered seelie Fae. Seelie is seen as lighter, more playful, whereas unseelie is seen as darker, more mischievous, perhaps more cruel. Often conflated with good and evil, they are not exactly such. Really, what they are is up to your interpretation in your version of the Fey realm. You should also decide on the overarching themes that you want present in your Fey realm. Do you want this to be a place of sunshine and rainbows and pots of gold at the end? Do you want it to also include dark, haunted bogs where the quicksand might swallow your party right up? You can include whatever you want, but get an idea, at least in your own mind, of what themes, what you want to include in your Fey realm. That brings me to another point. You want your Fey Realm to feel different than your Prime Material plane. You don't want this to feel like your players happen to be in just another forest. You want this to be a surreal experience for both the player characters and the players themselves. Things should not work the way they do in the Prime Material plane. You can eschew typical natural laws like time, gravity. You can invent new colors. You should also establish a few key locations. In my Fey planes, these might include the courts, where the rulers of these planes gather and have their parties and gatherings. I also, in my Fey planes, include tangible borders between the planes. Between spring and summer, there's a massive wall covered in vines and flowers, known as the Petal Wall. A final piece of advice I have for you is, we all know that just because you've prepared something doesn't mean your players are going to interact with it. In fact, the opposite is often true. The more time you put into preparing something, it seems like the more likely your players are to just ignore it. So don't just leave the Feywild, all that work you've done on it, in the Feywild. Bring it into the material plane, whether it be a gate to the Feywild that appears at an opportune moment, or perhaps creatures that come from the Feywild seeking something in the material plane. In one of my games, I brought Veles, who I have as the ruler of spring, into the material plane for a paladin who had abandoned his oath. Veles became his new god, granting him access to the Oathbreaker subclass, with a few strings attached, of course. If the idea of a Fey realm appeals to you and you want to include it in your game, then know that you'll likely have to put some work into preparing it. Take inspiration from literature or novels that you've read. Take inspiration from folklore and fairy tales. Now, I encourage you, if you found any of this interesting, steal my ideas. Use them for your own game. If not, I hope that this at least inspired you to come up with your own ideas for your Fey realm. Steal only what interests you and leave the rest behind. And it's okay to steal from as disparate sources as Slavic folklore and Shakespeare and combine them in the same place. This is your world. Do whatever interests you. I hope this video has inspired you to do some work on your own Fey realm. And always keep in mind, no matter how handsome and charismatic you are, there's always the chance that you crit fail on a persuasion check. Comment your best theories below, and good night, mortals.